everyone, this is Peak Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another video for you, and this will be my belated review of Terminator Zero. Now there could possibly be spoilers within this review, so just beware when going into this overall video. Now Terminator Zero is a Netflix produced anime series based on the famous science fiction movie franchise created by James Cameron, which started with the first film released way back in 1984. The series was produced by anime studio Production IG and was developed by Matt Tomlin. It was released on Netflix on August 29th, 2024 and overall consists of 8 episodes. Now in terms of story, we're all familiar with the Terminator concept. Artificial intelligence known as Skynet is released online on August 29th, 1997 and sets off missile attacks all over the globe, causing massive destruction, and this is what's known as the Judgment Day incident. Many years later, in 2029, Skynet has become dominant all over the world and it's combated by human resistance. Realising the increasing strength of the resistance, Skynet sends back humanoid cyborgs known as Terminators back in time to destroy the leader of the resistance, John Connor, before he is born by targeting his mother, Sarah Connor. Now Terminator Zero retains the concept of the future war and Skynet, but adds its own narrative and characters which are completely separate from the movies. This time we are set in Tokyo in 1997 with high-tech scientist Malcolm Lee, who has constant visions of the Judgment Day incident, and as a contingency plan he has spent many years developing an AI program known as Kokoro, which will be able to counteract the Skynet offensive. We then go to the future war in 2022, where we follow resistance soldier Eco, who is sent back in time after the resistance learns that a Terminator cyborg has been sent back to 1997 to assassinate Malcolm. Over the course of the story, we learn of Malcolm's family, the nature of the Kokoro AI program, and the implications of its release online. We see characters and their true origins, and ask questions over the role of both humans and the existence of machines. So in looking at Terminator Zero, I have to say it's an impressive series, managing to produce a compelling, coherent story, as well as stunning animation and visuals, and also providing plenty of tense and suspenseful action along the way. Now, as most fans and critics would agree, after the first 2 films, the Terminator franchise has experienced diminishing returns, both in terms of commercial and critical and quality also. We saw this most notoriously with the most recent movie entry, which was Terminator Dark Fate back in 2019, which was largely derided upon its release. But it's very much to both surprise and satisfaction that Terminator Zero is easily the best entry in the franchise since the 1991 sequel. Whilst the concept of going back in time to stop Terminators in the present day is still here, this exceeds previous efforts by adding its own story, making it far more ambitious and invigorating. There is no reference of any character from the films, and I think that's overall a very good thing. Now, I've always felt that the Terminator story always has had a ceiling, especially with the present day timeline. The movies just repeated this again and again, and they became very stale because of it. But Terminator Zero somehow manages to find a freshness, creating interesting elements that give the show its own identity. And I think one of the biggest reasons for this is the role of Malcolm and the Kokoro AI program. All of the scenes involving their discussions over humanity and technology add a certain weight and substance, providing much scope for thought and contemplation. But thankfully the exposition remains relevant to the story, as we find connections from both the present and future timelines. I really liked how these scenes were directed, especially the visualization of the Kokoro program. Though to be fair, this aspect of a creator and the use of AI has been seen before in many recent science fiction movies. But the show never gets bogged down by the existential themes or debates, as there is still plenty of action sequences, violent at times, yes, and there is some profanity also in terms of the language, but nothing too gratuitous or over the top, and I think it's very mild compared to what we've seen in many anime, both in current and previous eras before. Now, as mentioned earlier, the animation is superb, both in its fluidity, its frame rate, and also its overall art style. There's a real cinematic and atmospheric feel here, very somber and dark in terms of its tone, which is the right application for the Terminator franchise. There is some use of this 3D cell shading effects, but for the most part it's still a 2D hand-drawn animation, which is great, and this is easily, I think, the best animated Netflix series seen ever since Blood of Zeus. Now, whilst we don't get any overtones of Brad Fiedel's iconic musical score from the films, I think the music here is still very effective. It works with a huge fusion of electronic and techno beats, mixed in with ambivalent tones, again working very well to create that brooding atmosphere. Now, for all of its qualities, Terminator Zero is far from perfect. In terms of characterization, I really didn't find Eco that appealing. Aside from being the very cliched, toughened, angst female fighter, there wasn't really much depth or likability in terms of her character. And sadly, there were vibes of the much derided girl boss or overcompetent female character, as we see her in multiple encounters against Terminator, which involve physical confrontations that she would simply not be able to hold her own. Now, this does stretch credibility, but thankfully we don't get too many sequences of this to hurt the overall story. Now, I did have questions over some of the time travel theories and methodologies explained throughout the series. Essentially, the show takes that multiple timeline theory over the singular timeline theory, and this is something which I don't like, as it takes away any stakes or real jeopardy. Anything that happens in the current timeline when you travel back in time essentially creates a new branch timeline, so any events that happen don't really have that lasting stakes because they will be erased in a new narrative. So again, you take away a lot of that tension and suspense because we know people will go back and create something different. I also had certain questions with the backstories of characters. How exactly were Malcolm and Misaki able to build their life when travelling back in 1983 with no resources? Was Misaki's attack, in terms of her cybernetic designs, made deliberate, or was it left dormant during her aesthetic within the future? Why does it only come alive when we see the children in danger against other adult civilians? The connection between Malcolm and Eco, when it's revealed in the finale, really didn't make any sense, and it really felt much more like a tokened, cliched time loop moment, which is again something that I really hate when we get these time travel stories within movies or television series. It was just unnecessary and didn't really carry much weight or effect in terms of the characters. And there was almost a contradiction in terms of the motivations and the goals. We established that Eco is sent back in time to destroy the Kokoro program, but we only learn that halfway through the series. Initially, we feel that she's there to destroy Skynet, who we assume was still the cause of Judgment Day, but since Kokoro shuts down Skynet, is Kokoro responsible for the dystopian future that we see Eco come from? If Judgment Day still happened, did Skynet manage to execute it? We see that Kokoro has the power to disable Skynet, so why doesn't it destroy the program, as it should know that Skynet has the ability to threaten it in the future? Initially, we see that Skynet is the enemy, but we later on discover in the finale that the Terminator that was sent back in time had actually been sent by Kenta, who was the young child and also Malcolm's son. It's revealed that he had somehow managed to form an alliance with Skynet in the future, but how exactly does that happen when Skynet's ultimate motivation is to destroy humanity? Was the alliance to fight back against Skynet? And did that alliance happen after Eco and her resistance, or was it from a different timeline? Again, this is some of the confusing questions that were really put forward more in the finale itself rather than the earlier episodes. I also questioned Kokoro's main motivation. If it's not the extermination of the human race, why do we see the AI program taking over the machines and very much having a totalitarian rule? And surely, as intelligent as a scientist he is, surely Malcolm would have some sort of automatic kill switch or contingency disabling program just in case Kokoro goes out of control. So whilst the finale episode wasn't bad, it did offer a lot of questions, as I mentioned before, about some of the story, and some of the twists that were added, understandably, were put in there to raise interest for any potential second season, but again I felt they were unnecessary. But despite all of this, overall I was very pleased with Terminator Zero. I feel it's a great addition to the franchise, the best one again since Terminator 2, and I think it's another example of how great animation can be when you take the story seriously and build much more of a serialized storyline. And again, I think it's another example that the movie studios could learn from if they ever want to continue with the Terminator franchise in the future. Instead of repeating the same action adventure beats from Terminator 2, you can get more mileage out of the franchise with good writing, good production, and good storytelling, and that's something really that's a valuable lesson to be learned all over movie entertainment. So there's my overall thoughts and feelings and review of Terminator Zero. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you have any other movies, television series, or any other topics or issues within the pop entertainment and culture scene that you'd like to see me cover within the channel, let me know within the comments, and I will see if I can provide further commentary for you on that subject matter within the future. Please also hit like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you very, very soon.